So what's new? I'm new, aren't you? I'm a brand new version of me that just showed up this morning. The old version went to sleep last night and became many other versions during the night. And a new one appeared this morning, and I'm about 6 or 7 iterations into the new me already today. I've had new ideas and new experiences that have changed who I am. Physiologically, there's all kind of stuff going on. Dealing with the food I ingested and the things I've seen and the way my circulation goes up and my heart rate changes when Douglas sings. And when I hear good news about Kathy and I hear maybe difficult news about somebody else, I'm a new person in every one of those instances. So when someone says to you, what's new, the only correct answer is everything, all the time. Yet sometimes we feel like nothing's new, don't we? Life has become a rut. What's new? You know, somebody said, what's new and exciting? Well, what's exciting ain't all that new, and what's new ain't all that exciting. No, it's always new. It's always new. I don't think we have the thing hooked in. Hang on a second. Let's see here. We do go through this every week. Could you advance the slide, kind sir? No, thank you. Tom Robbins says, our lives are not as limited as we think they are. The world is a wonderfully weird place. Consensual reality is significantly flawed. No institution can be trusted, but love does work. All things are possible, and we all could be happy and fulfilled if we only had the guts to be truly free and the wisdom to shrink our egos and quit taking ourselves so damn seriously. Now you might say, easy for him to say. You know. Isn't it that often what we do with advice we don't want to hear? Well, easy for you to say. You know. But it's true. This is a true statement. They're never, even when we think we're pure possibility, we're still limiting ourselves in a way because there's an infinite involved here and we can't fully grasp it. The amazing thing about our teaching, the science of mind, is it's one of those philosophies, one of the relatively few philosophies on the planet today that really speak to the infinite nature of being and call us out of our smallness, if only conceptually. Because no matter how limited we think we are, how we think we've run out of options, that's never really so. The world is wonderfully weird, which means it doesn't always go in straight lines. Matter of fact, it never really does. Everything curves and spirals, even time and space, as Einstein showed us. You know, you think time runs straight ahead? No, it curves. Space it's just like a linear, curves around stuff, like planets and you. Space curves around you. I don't know how that helps you pay your Visa bill, but it speaks to possibility, doesn't it? Again, can't you tell I'm pushing the button? And I can put this down a little sooner this week. This is a new year, a new beginning, and things will change, said Taylor Swift, my favorite new metaphysician. She speaks truth. Remember the last time you looked like that? Before things got serious? Before you started carrying the burden of not knowing what needed to be done and how hard it was to do? Before you started carrying the burden of all the suffering in your life and the life of others? When's the last time you looked like that you were sober? Oh, well. Look at the unbridled joy captured in that picture. And it doesn't mean we shouldn't grow up in the sense of becoming an adult. What it means is how much of that have we lost along the way, maybe, because we have opted to see the world in a way that leads us to be depressed or upset or sad or angry or a mixture of most of them all of the time. You don't look like that when you watch cable news, right? I have never felt that way watching cable news. Maybe we shouldn't do things that don't lead us to feel that way. Something to think about. We don't want to be absolutist about it, but isn't it interesting? I was going to pick this up and click it, but I'm going to have to instead go to you and say, "Don't!" Neil Gaiman, one of my favorite authors, says, "I hope that in this year to come you make mistakes. Because if you are making mistakes, then you're making new things, trying new things, learning." I don't know what that says. It's over here. Living, pushing yourself, changing your world. You've done things you've never done before, and more importantly, you're doing something. If nothing's going wrong, you're not doing anything. Some of us are doing a lot, right? And if nothing's going right, then maybe what you need is an attitude adjustment, a focus change, but not necessarily a forward momentum change. The forward momentum is carrying us forward all the time. That's why everything is new all the time. It's okay if you don't fully understand something that's new. Everything has a learning curve, including the next moment. We put so much energy into trying to keep mistakes from happening, don't we? And sometimes that's appropriate. It really is. You know, if you're building parts for the International Space Station, it would be nice if they worked. So there are times when it is appropriate we have these checks and double checks and systems where everything needs to work. But that's a relatively small percentage of life. Certainly not the abstract parts of life. The way we feel about situations and one another, that's, you know, we get to try different things out in relationship and see what works and what doesn't, see what resonates and what doesn't. Am I willing to step out, as Dr. Arlene Bump says, on the skinny branches of life, trusting that they will hold me? Or do I need to stay and cling to the trunk of the tree because it feels safe? So we're called, I think, to adventure in a sense by the nature of life. Now that doesn't mean we all have to go out and, you know, bungee jump off Victoria Falls, or don't have to do anything beyond what would be who you are. But I think occasionally, at least, we kind of have to go to the limits of who we are to stretch that envelope a bit. It might just be as simple as saying hello to a stranger or talk to that person in the corner at work who nobody ever talks to. Drive home a different way. Have something different for breakfast. Put your shoes on the opposite feet for a day and see what happens. Get that scary ladder out of the garage and put it up against the house and climb to the very top. Ask that question you've been afraid to ask. Be willing to hear that answer you've been avoiding. Next. Ernest said, never limit your view of life by any past experience. That's a very short sentence for Ernest, especially. But boy, there's a lot in it. You think, well, yeah, of course, I agree with that. And yet, how often, how many times an hour do we limit what we will accept, what we will grow into, what we will try. Oh, I've been there once. It was no good. I had a touch of food poisoning this week. And by a touch, I mean I was incapacitated for about 12 hours. I won't go into detail. But I have some photos. But it reminded me of another time when I really had way more than a touch. I was down for like 3 days. It was right before our Asilomar conference up in Monterey, and we were at the old, then RSI, Religious Science International board meetings. And as would happen, we get into town and we go out to dinner and then have board meetings for a couple of days and go out to dinner those nights, and then the conference would start. And the first night in town, we went to this great seafood restaurant, and they had oysters on the menu, and I ordered some oysters, and apparently one or two of those was not good. That's my seafood purveyor now, Colin. And I just got really, really sick. I missed a couple days of board meetings. I missed the wine party at the end of the board meetings. Dorianne went, but I didn't go. Anyway, so that could have put me off of oysters. That was about as nasty an experience as I've ever had with food. And the next time I sat down to order, and by the way, I walked 2 miles in a like a delirious daze, because they told me that the what do you call it, the place where you go, the doctor's office. Not the drugstore. Yeah, they call them the place where you can just go in and get treated. Urgent care, thank you. They said it's 2 blocks away. Well, it was 2 miles away. And I found it somehow, and I walk in, and they just ran up and grabbed me and said, well, what happened to you? I said, I ate some oysters. Oh, we told them not to serve oysters beginning of the week because there's been so many bad oysters. You're the 110th case. So that was really good. Anyway, so the next time I went to eat oysters, which was in a month with an R in it, which this month wasn't. Somebody can explain that to you if you don't know what I mean. I said I'm going to order them, and they put them in front of me, and it was like this repulsion. That kind of reptilian brain sensed the smell of the oysters or the vision of the oysters and immediately went into a reject mode. And I thought, I like oysters. I'm just going to eat them. I'm not going to let this stop me. And I did. I took one, and it was kind of hard to get through that first one. After that, it was fine. But how many times, and that's just a little simple example, but how many times in life where we've had that kind of a hot stove experience do we just turn away from that area of life entirely? They say a cat will never get on a hot stove twice, but they'll never get on a cold one again either. So that's another way we limit ourselves. We don't become open to the new because we had a bad experience in the past. And we give up on that slice of whatever it is. Experience or humanity. I've had it with men, that kind of thing. Fortunately, there's another gender, but that's, So we don't want to limit our view of life by a past experience. What I have to do, though, is pay attention to this as I'm going through, because a lot of times we're doing this without even thinking about it. It's just automatic. Oh, I had a bad experience at that place. I never shop there anymore. Somebody looked at me funny in the parking lot. I never go there again. It was a cloudy day, so I stayed in the house. Because once I went out on a cloudy day and I tripped and fell. Next slide. Ernie next to his Cadillac. He was a little guy, see? He was kind of short. A realization of the presence of God is the most powerful healing agency known to the mind of man or woman. A recognition of the presence of God. A recognition of the presence of God. What does that mean? It doesn't just mean something we can look up or something we maybe remember. It's something that we want to instill in our being from the standpoint, the presence of God or the presence of Spirit or the presence of the creative power of the universe in me, around me, and through me all the time, that is unlimited in itself by anything or anyone, and that I have full access to. What if you had to remember that your car had an engine before it would start? That you get in the car and you go, oh, gee, you know, I don't know what I'm going to do in this. Oh, it has an engine. Oh, okay, then we can go somewhere. No, you take it for granted. It's part of the deal, part of the package. That thing in the front or the back of the car that powers you to get where you're going, you can trust the process, you can turn the key, you can start to go where you're going and say, yes, I have the power to get there. But how many of us don't relate to the same way to the power within us that is this universal presence that we call God, because we got to call it something, that we always have? You are powerful beyond measure. Not so much in and of yourself, but in that you are part of a larger infinite power that is fully present everywhere. Yet a lot of us act as if that isn't so. We act as though we're detached or separate from whatever else is going on. And when we feel that way, when we come to believe that we are that way, we begin to become diminished in our capacity to be in joy like that little kid on the roller skates was. It's like, what if the car had an engine but you didn't believe it had an engine? What would you do with it? Make it a planter? Buy a couple of horses and hook them up to the front so you could go somewhere? I mean, think about it. Yeah, that would be silly, wouldn't it? But how often do we make other similar kinds of accommodations when we think we don't have the power within us? How do we do that? Well, we try to manipulate other people into giving us their power, or doing what we think we lack. You know, starts as a little kid. No, you go ask sister if we can stay outside for 5 more minutes. You know. You ask mom. And then they'll go try to manipulate mom directly. Right? Give me the power. Can I have the power? Will you just tell me that you think I have the power? Well, I'm telling you, I think you have the power. Go act like it. And it is a very simple idea, but it's one where a lot of the past conditioning that Ernest talked about in the first statement holds us back. Who are you to think you can do something like that? You know? We've all heard things like that in some form or fashion. You know? Who are you to think you can do that? You're a woman. You're not the right color. You're not the right age. You're not the right whatever. And yet we have example after example after example in the world of people who for some reason don't buy into that. And we end up with women who are astronauts. We end up with, you know, all the stories. There was a guy on the field yesterday for the I think Pittsburgh, who's 5'8", playing in the National Football League. Imagine how many people told him he couldn't do that. And maybe just one told him he could, and that was enough for him to say yes. Or maybe nobody had to tell him. But for most of us, somebody's got to tell us before we can accept it. And that's one of the problems in life, because It's important that we understand that. So we need to seek out people that will tell us that we will believe. There's a really wonderful film out. It's not going to be in wide distribution. And the name of it just went out of my head. The one about the drummer. Whiplash. And it's about, it's not a true story. It's based on a true story, of course, but a lot of it's fictional. But basically, it's a young man who plays jazz drums, and he goes to this very high-end conservatory where they do jazz music, and he gets invited into the top band, which is run by kind of a drill instructor type, who is very abusive. But this kid needs this guy to say he's good before he will do what he needs to do to get that good. Now, are there other ways to do that? Probably. Yeah, I think love is a better motivator, but that wasn't available in this situation. But it's interesting to watch. They really capture well the interplay of him trying to be accepted and what he will go through, playing the drums till his hands bleed. And then the guy saying, somebody wipe the blood off my drums. Get this bum out of here. And then coming back and coming back and coming back. That's how much we want to be told that we're valuable. He just found the wrong teacher. See, sometimes we'll take it from anybody, even if they're abusive to us. So we've got to, I think, become self-contained enough to say, I need to be really, really wise about who I give permission to in my life to influence me. And I need to be really, really strong about that. And there's only one way to get there, and that's to love yourself through the process. Love yourself enough to insist that others respect you. So that's the process we work toward. Can we do another slide? So what is next for us, for you, for me, for the world? I don't know. Yogi Berra says, I never predict things, especially about the future. Who knows? We know some things that are, there's going to be a process here to find somebody to stand up here and talk to you and do other things. I do other things, by the way. Like maintain the Facebook page and things. That's coming. Everybody here has a pathway that you're on that may be very similar to what it has been, or it may be changing rapidly. So that, you can kind of know you're on a pathway. You don't know what's going to come next. It's sort of like you're Dorothy going down the yellow brick road, who you're going to meet. There'll be some trees that throw apples at you, and there'll be some other people that maybe support you. We don't know what's coming. What we have some impact on and influence over is who we are as we move forward. Who we are. Who am I being as I step into this next chapter of my life, which I'm calling No Fixed Address. It's interesting to hear people's responses. Well, what are you going to do? Well, we don't know. Well, where are you going to do it? We're not sure. Well, when are you going to know? Good question. And then they start over. No, really, what are you going to do? Stuff. We'll do stuff. We'll do it in places. There'll be probably some people around. There will be food and wine. But other than that, we don't know. Well, when do you think you will know? How long are you going to do this for? Until we stop and do something else. I don't know. I can't figure you out, Dr. Jim. Like I can. Trying something new is what we're doing. I mean, if you get right down to it, trying something new, that's all. And it may elevate us to levels that we've never been to before. It may cause us to come crawling back begging for forgiveness. I don't know. Don't know. Well, why don't you stay here? Don't know that either. It's time to go. Trying to honor that call, which is a very non-specific call at this point. But trying to honor it, because it's a clear call. And Dorian and I are both experiencing it. And if we stayed, it might not look like anything was ever wrong. But something that was possible to happen wouldn't happen. I won't say destined to happen, because I don't believe in destiny. I believe we create our reality in each new moment out of an array of pure potential. And the only thing that's limiting what we can bring to be out of that infinity is our own current mindset of what we can say yes to. So what we are doing is expanding what we'll say yes to, which is more uncertainty in life. And we're also going through the process of grieving departure. Because if we don't grieve this properly, and I'm speaking for Dorian and I, but also anybody else, if we don't grieve it properly, we carry excess baggage into the next experience and limit that. So that's part of the process too. That's why we're getting sick, I think. You know, you just don't get sick because of the world around you. You get sick because of an inner receptivity to something emotional that needs to be expressed that isn't being expressed in a healthy way and will not be expressed any other way. Illness is teacher. So what's new? Everything. All the time. Even if you're doing the exact same routine this week that you did last week, it's all brand new. And wouldn't it be nice if we could go back to the old days? No, it wouldn't, and you can't. Very simple. As another great metaphysician, Ronald Reagan, said, they remember the outhouse, they remember the log cabin, but they forget the outhouse. Wasn't it great back when? Yeah, yeah. I had a friend, a retired cop I know from we're online together, and he says, "Boy, I wish it was back in the 50s. Everything was really great then." I said, "Yeah, it was, and as long as you were white and male," which he is, so he was fine with that. But otherwise, maybe it wasn't so great. You know? Our stated vision in Centers for Spiritual Living is to help create a world that works for everyone. I think it already does work for everyone. But what we probably should have, the way we probably should have worded it, but this came out of committee, so, you know. So. But the way, it's true. The way we probably should have worded it is a world full of people who work, who are realized, who are happy, who are joyful, who are creative and free to express. The world doesn't make us, we make the world. The Course in Miracles says this universe was not created by God, it was created by those in it. Which is the same thing. Everything, this spiritual community, it's an idea. We rent the building, it's not even ours. You think about, what do you think about when you think about this place? You might, our community, you might think about the building or the sign or the people or whatever, and it's all of that and none of that. It's an idea. It's a collective idea that is shared. And it's new in every moment. And when it gets stuck, it doesn't do well. It's like water. Water's got to flow. If it stagnates, it loses its vitality, its capacity to support life. Everything here has got to flow. Ministers come and ministers go. By the way, so do congregants. We've had a huge turn. Since I've been here, there's probably a 75% turnover in this place. We didn't give them all a party when they left. But that's just the nature of things. This isn't the same place I walked into 6 years ago. It's completely different. And isn't that wonderful? That means learning has occurred. Learning is change. Change is newness. So we're about to begin, we, not me, we. I'll be off at no fixed address. Are about to begin on a process of looking for someone to do the role of spiritual leader, which is a role that everyone kind of tacitly agrees to, and you find value or not, and you come or you don't come based on that. But I'll tell you this, in terms of how it unfolds, the attitude, the collective attitude of this group is the key element in what you will attract in terms of a person or people to come in and do this. Just like everything else. Just like everything else. But if we go back to the Neil Gaiman statement and we say, well, we can't make a mistake. Sure you can. You can screw up big time. You can get the dead wrong person, but it'll be the right person. You may get somebody that lasts 2 weeks and says, screw this. These people are crazy. And that would be a perfect mistake, because that might get you to the next, because we adjust our expectations, we adjust our consciousness. And if we say we can't get the wrong person, you'll get the wrong person. Because you're thinking about the wrong person. You want the person that'll irritate you the most in a loving way. Really, you know that, right? That will challenge you. You just want to come in here and hear stuff that you already believe. Boy, that's boring. You can stay home and talk to yourself. Save the donation. You want the perfect person to call forth from within you what is ready to emerge. And I know that's who's coming. Who else could it be? So when we say what's new, remember the correct answer, everything, all the time. Next slide. Thank you and namaste.